You're listening to Ka-Pow, the pop culture podcast. Comics, television, movies, and more. If it impacts fan culture, we have something to say about it. And now, your hosts, Jordan, Cliff, and Seth.
Dead dog in the alley. Tire tread on burst stomach. This city has seen my face and it's afraid.
Herm.
I should have looked that up because I just now thought of doing that. And I don't know if I did it correctly. But I tried. My name is Jordan Lowe.
Cliff Barnes.
I'm Seth.
Who podcasts the podcasters?
We need a podcast about our podcast.
What are we doing? We've been off a little bit. We're rusty.
Yeah. It's been 4 weeks since we actually recorded anything. So we got through Halloween. We're all still here. Good. And I don't know.
Yeah, we weren't murdered on Halloween.
Yeah, we didn't get murdered.
We survived.
We didn't hang out in any cemeteries.
But we watched a lot of television.
Yeah.
Oh, Dolores.
What the hell is a sticky maple?
Run, Barry, run!
That's what I do. I drink and I know things.
Go get him, Supergirl.
Well, what does this guy look like, anyway?
Oh, he's a little guy, kind of funny looking.
Uh-huh. In what way?
Oh, just in a general kind of way.
Exterminate!
Little pig, let me in.
These violent delights have violent ends.
That's what she said.
Movie.
So, headline. I believe I sent a message that we were witnessing and this goes on the box, the Ka-Pow quote that will go on the Watchmen Blu-ray 4K release, season 1, the peakiest of peak TV.
There you go, Lindelof. Slap it right.
You
up
can
on
have it. We're loving it. So that's our review.
Yeah, we're done. No, I was, when it came to HBO, we were like, man, what am I going to do? Gemstones is over. What am I going to watch now?
I knew it was coming out. I knew Watch was coming out, but I just had not let myself think about it, consider whether it was going to be good or not. I liked Lost. I loved The Leftovers Lindelof did. Mm-hmm. I know you guys didn't watch it. This actually has a Leftovers feel to it. But this...
I honestly didn't care.
Yeah.
I love Watchmen. I've read it a dozen times. I adore it. The movie's fine. The before Watchmen stuff is fine. Doomsday Clock is fine. Like, I'm not against it.
Yeah.
But I was like, whatever. What are they even going to do? They're not adapting the main thing. They're doing a new story. The costumes look a little funky.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, I'll watch it. Mm-hmm. But I had zero expectations.
Yeah, I don't think most of us had any clue what it was really going to be.
No.
And good on them.
And if it had been terrible, it wouldn't have. I probably still would have watched it.
I wouldn't have been super disappointed because I was just
who
like,
cares?
Had no expectations, but
yeah. So if you haven't watched it, which we assume most of you have by now, but in case you don't have HBO, this is a direct sequel to the Watchmen comic. This is not a sequel to the movie, but this is running 30 years after the comic.
Homage to the movie.
Yeah, there is. There's some good stuff in there, and I like the movie. Like,
it's got its good points.
Yeah, it's not it's not a direct
of its time.
Yeah, right. It's not a direct adaptation, but when it comes to Zack Snyder, that's probably the best thing I think that he's really done.
And I don't know that this show exists without that movie.
Right.
Like, the movie made it more mainstream.
Yeah.
Love it or hate it, more people know about it because there's a movie.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, break it down for us, Jordan.
Watchmen's here to say...
Herm.
I'm taking some big leaps this episode, and I don't feel like it's working. So as we record, there have been 3 episodes out. So we're going to spoil what's in the first 3 or what's in the comic probably. Well, who knows? But we're going to talk about a little bit of it. It's a superhero story, but not really. The original comic was about, it was that 80s thing of trying to be grim and gritty, and what would it be like to be a superhero? What would an actual superhero, psychologically, physically, mentally, emotionally, like what would being a vigilante, how would that wear on you, and what kind of person would put on a mask and go out in the dark and beat people up? And so it's trying to be that realistic, grounded thing.
And how much leeway would these people have to do what they wanted to do?
Right. Yeah, and it deals with the politics of the day and the how they were viewed by the public and the media. So, the original comic is dense and it has a lot to say. And not all the heroes are good guys. I don't know if any of the quote unquote heroes are good guys, the protagonists. And it has a ton of memorable characters, and now we have, like you said, it was written in, it came out in 1985 through 86. Yeah. And it was set during that time. So now we're to present day. This show is set in 2019. And everything that happened in the 80s, they didn't condense time at all. So the characters have aged. Mm-hmm. The society has gone on. And we're telling a modern story. Yeah, but you have to keep in mind it's an alternate reality. This was a reality that we won the Vietnam War. And Nixon ran 5 terms or whatever. So, certain things are not the same, portrayed the same. I don't know that there's really an internet at this point in this new series. They have cell phones,
they're working on it or something. They have pagers.
Yeah. Do we get into PDpedia already?
Do it.
All right, HBO, and the comic came out as 12, and most people know it as a graphic novel, but
this came out... the most famous, I don't know if famous, I tried to explain it to somebody the other day, I was like, I'm watching Watchmen, and which is appropriate, and then I was like, it's not based on the most famous graphic novel of all time, never heard of it. I was like, okay, famous is maybe not the way to say it. Most... highly lauded, most critically acclaimed.
It made the Time magazine top 100 novels of all time. So, it's the only comic
on the list.
To make that so. Yeah. So, at the end of every issue in the comic, there was this bonus material. It was an interview with someone or a newspaper article. It just it was world building. It was creating some extra content to get a flavor of what that world is like. Well, HBO has done the cool thing of also doing that. HBO.com/PDpedia. PETEYPEDIA. I'll link to it in the notes. Agent Dale Peedy is an FBI agent who is the Information Technology Administrator for the FBI's Anti-Vigilante Task Force. So this is basically, we're looking at his notes.
And he's a character who shows up in the 3rd episode.
Right.
Sidekick now to Gene Smart's character, but he is kind of an expert on the past of the Watchmen.
Right. So he's a historian, and he's worried about pop culture of it all. So it is doing a good job of world building, and it was explaining Gene Smart's character, Laurie Blake. I knew she was in this from reading this, which I was a little bit I kind of would have been rather been surprised, but whatever. So it has given away a few things. It cements that there was a squid attack, which is what happens in the comics, but not in the movie.
Right.
Yeah.
So the comics, if you're unfamiliar, I think the movie had Dr. Manhattan as this giant threat that would cause the Americans and the Russians to forget the Cold War and band together to fight Dr. Manhattan. The comic had an extra dimensional threat, this giant squid monster that Ozymandias created as a fiction to come through to our dimension. So they have labeled that the Dimensional Incursion Event, and that created the technology of the day. If you remember the comic, I go back and just saying, remember the comic? But Dr. Manhattan changed the world. All the cars were electric. Everything was futuristic. We had blimps and airships, and because we ran on clean Manhattan energy. Well, after this happens, people freak out, as well as the cancer threat. Because the way they got rid of Manhattan, everyone who hung around with Dr. Manhattan said they had cancer. So all this free technology he gave them might either cause you cancer or it might have ripped open the fabric of the universe. So people freaked out and they tore down all the infrastructure, destroyed their computers, phones, and towers. And so now we're behind. So it's the modern day, but the technology is just catching up to probably the 80s or 90s.
There's
so much.
So start at the beginning. So episode 1 starts out in 1921 Tulsa. Anybody here aware?
I felt bad.
I did too. I had
Black
no idea.
Wall Street, they called it.
Yeah, Black Wall Street.
This is a real thing that happened.
This really happened.
So yeah, the show starts out. There are riots and people being shot in the street and airplanes flying over and bombing people. And I thought, what a preposterous thing for them to be dropping bombs from the sky.
In
what a Watchmen-y type thing. That actually happened.
That happened here.
Yeah, people threw bombs out of airplanes. Like, it feels like a comic book villainy plot.
So what had happened was, at the time, Tulsa, Oklahoma had a district that was basically African American, and it was
prosperous.
It was they were thriving. They had money and power, and a bunch of white people came in and attacked them and blew it up.
Now in the show, I told you guys, I was like, that felt like a very Superman-ish origin story, because we had this child. What was his name? Do you know? I don't remember, but his parents tried to save him and put him in a box at the back of a stagecoach or whatever, wagon or whatever, and there hide him and send him off with a note on him from watch this boy or whatever.
Yeah, watch over this boy.
Yeah.
Which again is that watch over this boy? Watch over this boy. Like, we don't know what that note even means. But
and then he ends up crashing in a field and all this. I'm just like, this feels very Superman-ish. What he had been studying, also he was sitting watching a movie and about a real guy that had lived.
Bass Reeves.
Yeah, I was like, I learned so much.
See, I knew about him because of Justified.
Oh, okay.
There's some aside on that show. It's like, has anybody ever told Denzel about Bass Reeves? Because why has there not been a movie? This is the guy whose life became like the Lone Ranger was based on this guy.
Yeah.
As an African American U.S. Marshal who just had these mythic adventures, and we've barely heard of him.
Right.
So yeah, in this reality, that person got his due and was on the screen and inspiring people at a young age. So it's the race relation stuff in the show is very front and center. And it happened to come out the week our president said he was being lynched on Twitter, and it got kind of a backlash of like, you don't understand what that means to certain people. And so I swear I was watching, I think it was CNN. There was a commentator on there who said, quote, Americans don't know their own bloody history. And he basically said, until you saw it on Watchmen. The guy on CNN talked about Watchmen and seeing, this Tulsa thing. And I felt bad. It's like, I didn't know about that.
No, I immediately, I had to look it up.
Yeah.
So they hid, they just hid things from us. And they didn't want us to know, the general public.
And even the history that was written called it a race riot.
Right.
Which, what does that mean?
Right.
Race riot has a connotation
that makes
of violence,
the minorities look bad,
not massacre.
Right.
So it's causing. It's already. We're 5 minutes into the show, and I'm already like, there's so much to sink your teeth into.
Yes, very dense.
Oh, the white guilt's just flowing out.
But people don't like that because that's not their Watchmen.
Yeah.
It's like, did they read the original comic book?
I said, set in the 80s and all the Reagan economics and Margaret Thatcher's Britain, and like, it was steeped in that stuff. The Cold War, Vietnam, like, that's what this show was. And we're not dealing with that stuff today.
Right.
Russia, who's even thought about Russia in years? But we're dealing with other stuff. And I think this show is doing a decent job out of the gate being relevant. Not preaching and not saying here's how you have to believe, because I don't know who's the good guy or the bad guy on this. Like, the cops aren't good guys.
Right.
The 7th Cavalry that they're going up against are definitely not good guys. So it's not, pointing you in a direction of what to think or how to feel. It's laying it all out there, and you got to figure it out yourself. And that's good television.
And so, okay, in this timeline, there was a attack by the 7th Cavalry, correct? Was that the White Knight?
Yeah, the White Knight. It was on Christmas Eve.
And
Christmas Eve of 2016, and according to Petey, there were 3 survivors. Judd Crawford,
Don Johnson's character.
Angela.
Regina
King's character. And I'm not sure if they said who the third
They
one
haven't
was.
said yet. No.
So that's canon. There's a 3rd survivor.
Okay.
And
because they were police, they were attacked.
Yeah.
All the police were killed.
Right. 40 killings or 40 shootings or whatever on Christmas Eve night, which prompted...
by people dressed in Rorschach masks.
Right.
Called the 7th Cavalry.
And so they are... Now the police wear masks, which is a nice twist. So they don't know their identities, so they can't hurt them or their families, which is the whole reason that every comic book hero ever wore a mask, is so they didn't get their families hurt. And now the detectives can, like, the higher level can have even secret identities, have, like, there's several different ones that it
seems like they're very against vigilantes. But it's okay if you're part of the police.
Right.
Like, they encourage this extra level.
Yeah, and what all once we know about she's
Sister
Knight, which is cool. She spray paints her eyes.
Dresses. She looks like a nun.
Yeah.
Oh, that's gonna be cosplayed.
Oh my god!
For the rest of the time, that's a good look.
Right.
And then
it's going to be my go-to. That or the Red Scare.
Yeah, the Red Scare.
That's an easier. Go.
I can find me a track.
That's more of a budget. That's a cosplay on a budget.
Yeah. The Red Scare. He is apparently Russian. He's a communist.
Yeah.
So we have to assume that.
Well, never fell.
The USSR still exists. They are an ally of ours now.
Yeah. And then we had there was the pirate lady,
Pirate Jenny.
Yeah, which is a very Black Freighterish character there. Which was the comic with, or what was it was within the original comic.
Within a comic.
There's a kid in the comic, because in a world with superheroes, they're not popular in fiction.
Right.
Because we have real superheroes. So in fiction, pirates are the top thing. Everybody loves pirate stories.
Of course.
So we got a pirate comic within the comic as kind of a counterpoint with different plot lines and things. So
yeah. So
and then you have Looking Glass.
Yeah,
Looking Glass
is that's who I'm going to cosplay as.
Mr. Noodle's brother, Mr. Noodle. If anybody knows what I'm saying, I was saying I know that's Tim Blake Nelson under that mask.
Because Michael Jeter has passed
all
away.
I see is Michael Jeter, because I can't see his face, and I've always got them kind of confused anyway. So I'm just like, I think that's, and he played Mr. Noodle's brother, Mr. Noodle, on Elmo on Sesame Street. Yeah. So that's where I went with that. So I'm glad he's taking his mask off more now, because it's less. It's bothering me less.
And then you have Panda.
Oh yeah,
who just has a big panda mask.
Yeah, great. Okay, I love it. So Sister Knight's a badass.
Oh man,
this is super cool.
Yeah.
I like she ran into Louis Gossett Jr. at her fake bakery, which is front for her, like, her little hideout, which is cool. That place is never going to open.
Yeah, that was my biggest takeaway is, guys, I know it takes a long time to open a bakery. I have first-hand experience of how long it takes to open a bakery.
Do you have a freaking secret hideout? I've been in there. You've even got, like, the things that you fight, the mannequins.
Yeah, there's mannequins everywhere.
You've got a cook machine from the 80s. Technology has not gotten any further.
I'm going to have to explore a little more of my back room.
Wow. There's even a grave in there. Anyway, wow.
Yeah, so Sister Knight, she apparently has a very close relationship with the chief of police, which is played by Don Johnson.
He's one of the only other survivors. Mm-hmm. Don Johnson's so good. We're spoiling this, and I'm sure you've seen it. At the end of the first episode, he gets hung from a tree. He dies, and I was just so sad to see his character go. I'm sure he's going to appear in flashbacks and stuff.
It kind of shocked me, and then you start to think, okay, that's exactly what happened to the comedian.
Right.
You kill him off in the first issue, but he still looms over the whole rest of the story.
So much mirroring of this.
Oh, and
from episode to episode, back to the comics. Oh, it's
when he's hanging from the tree and that badge is laying on the ground, and you see that drop of blood come down over. I was like,
yeah. Oh, it's so well done. I told Jordan what freaked me out was because when Louis Costa Jr. asked her if he could lift 200 pounds, and at the end of that episode, I was like, he can lift 200 pounds. It freaked me out. I was like, oh my gosh, that's what he was talking about. Oh, it was so good.
Yeah, so he gets killed, which
and we find out Louis Costa Jr. is the boy from the beginning. He's got the note on him at the end.
He's 105 years old now.
Yeah.
And are we all taking everything at face value?
No,
that everything they're telling us.
Not everything. I feel like we're going to make some mistakes in what we're guessing, but I think that we have a lot of experience watching TV and talking about TV and trying to be a little critical of it. I think we can see through some things, and some things are just face value.
But I almost hate watching shows like that where I'm trying to, I bet that's not what I'm really seeing. Right. Like, I want to just experience it and not try to crack the code and everything I'm watching. But
there is some in there, I think.
Yeah, I think there is too.
But I do believe that is who he is. He is that character. I don't think they're messing with us as far as that. No. And then we found out later that she is
his granddaughter.
She's his granddaughter. Yeah. So there's going to be a lot of things like that we find out.
And there is definitely something up with it. I mean, that scene where he reaches into the boiling.
Yeah, he pulls a egg out of a boiling pot of water. Well, I was telling Jordan, I think that he is Hooded Justice.
I've heard that too. Yeah,
because he has the noose. Mm-hmm. He's wears that red jacket and everything. I mean, they're obviously trying to mirror that, and I think that's a face value thing. Like, they're hiding it a little bit, type thing. It feels like that's got to be what who that was, because in the comics it wasn't really
in the
clear.
Comic, you learned about this first generation of heroes, and I think they pretty much told everyone's secret identity except for Hooded Justice. Mm-hmm. There was a German circus strongman was killed. He refused to. Yeah, this is basically the McCarthyism. Like, all the heroes had to go forward and reveal their identity, and he's the one that didn't, and he just disappeared and was never seen again. So the theory Hollis Mason puts in his book that he thinks it was this German guy, but I said if a show wants to squeeze the character, that's the one you could easily do, because no one knew who he was. Yeah. So it wouldn't mess the fans. Oh no, you've retconned Hooded Justice's origin. I don't think they would.
I guarantee they are doing that. You are totally wrong. They are upset that their German guy is not Hooded Justice.
Yeah, but the show they're doing this wonderful thing where in the show there's a television program called American Hero Story, and we're seeing bits and pieces of it, but it is done like the Zack Snyder movie.
That might be my favorite thing of all 3 episodes.
That was
They
awesome.
shot it in that slow
when he jumps through the window and stuff. That's so good.
Ultra stylized, ultra violent.
Yeah.
I think that's a nod, but also a dig. Like, it's kind of a dig at Zack Snyder.
If they had come out and said, "Hey, Zack Snyder filmed those," I would have been like, "Yeah, I could totally tell."
Right. Yeah, that was awesome.
But then, Don Johnson, he's drinking from an owl mug on his desk.
He flies an owl ship.
He has Hollis Mason's book under the hood on his desk. And so, like, the show's, do you think he might be Night Owl? Is he changed that? So, like...
He's definitely not.
So, I don't want to do that with every character.
No.
It's
I think that's obviously it's not. I think his ship was even like white. And, his version of that night owl ship. But it's less like he clearly we're finding out, at least they're more than hinting at that he was part of the, he's got a KKK outfit and things. So kind of pointing at the systemic racism in the police force and things. And, we're going to find out more about his character.
Well,
I think but not that he's the owl. We find out in the third episode that the Night Owl's in jail.
Right, exactly. So
we see the owl in the cage.
Yeah, Laurie's got the owl, and I think it's pretty safe to assume that because Night Owl, the character, was all about gadgets and he had the ship and stuff. But I think, or Night Owl too. I think if he's been in jail for 30 years. Or whatever, it's very we can assume that the government has taken his technology and obviously used some of it.
Yeah, Agent Petey says Dan Dreberg and Laurie Blake were arrested in 1995 for violating the Keene Act. Which Keene, that is the
no vigilantes.
No vigilantes, where that's in place as Watchmen the book began, and we have his son or grandson Joe.
It's his son,
Senator Joe Keene. That's kind of the So basically, Laurie Silk Spectre, instead of going to jail, she went to work for the government, and apparently Dan wouldn't compromise. So they've been estranged for all these years. Dan's been in prison, and she's been reluctantly working with the FBI.
Yeah, and Jean Smart was so great. That third episode is the best so far.
That really surprised me, like how good she was.
Well, did you not watch any of Legion?
No.
She was that show. We've I've talked about before. You watched more of it than I did. Very stylized, and there's a lot of good about it, but it's more mystery than substance. But she was great in it.
I don't think I've seen her in anything.
Except every episode of Designing Women, because I'm sure you watched it religiously like he and I.
I'm going to drop a mic right here.
Okay.
I'm going to say Jean Smart deserves what the world has given Betty White.
Okay. I'm with you.
Because Betty White's great.
But she's not doing anything
Betty
like
White
this.
has become...
She's just old.
Iconic. Mm-hmm. Whereas Jean Smart also played a dumb person in an 80s sitcom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And has gone on Fargo.
Yeah. Killed it.
Legion.
Yeah.
And one episode of this. Like, she has chops. She is the best part of 3 great shows.
Yes.
So Jean Smart
is
where it's at.
I'm scared. I want to see what else she could do. But I feel like this is the sweet spot. She is so good on a TV show like this, on premium television, that I just keep putting her on her. I hope she's all through this. Luckily she's playing a very main character.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
So she comes in and she's just taking on everybody and pretty much winning, at least until she meets Sister Night.
Yeah. What happened in the second episode? I remember. Well, meanwhile, we're seeing Jeremy Irons.
Yeah, we haven't talked about him.
I would really like to develop a Jeremy Irons voice for when I'm old. He has the best voice. He's got like a sophisticated Christopher Lloyd voice. I mean, he really sounds like Christopher Lloyd, only not silly. Yeah.
Jeremy Irons deserves everything Christopher Lloyd.
Yeah. He's great.
So they took 2.5 episodes to not name him. Mm-hmm. But they made it very obvious who he was, so I'm not sure what the swerve was there. But up rides Jeremy Irons on a pale horse, mind you.
Yep.
And I'm just fascinated. What is happening? He's living on this weird estate.
No idea.
He's either a prisoner or he's stranded somewhere. Is he on Earth? Is he on Mars? Is he in the past or the future?
We don't know.
He's on his own show right now.
He is.
Yeah.
He's on some sort of different timeline because we've seen each of the first 3 episodes. He has an anniversary of something of being there. I assume they bring him a cake with 1 candle, then 2, then 3, and he's creating all these clones and doing experiments. I assume he's trying to do something to get out of wherever he is.
But he's trying to the recreation, doing the play of Dr. Manhattan's origin. Like, he's obsessed. He seems obsessed with that, with Dr. Manhattan.
But the more I see it, it looks like, I agree. I'm not sure what the ultimate goal is, but it looks like he's using that play as a excuse to create technology with what he has, where he's at, to create something to go underwater or something to get off of this island, or what is he doing? Or is it a space suit to get off Mars? What is he doing, Jordan?
I don't know.
But I mean, don't you feel like he only has so much materials there or whatever? And
So in the 3rd episode, he comes right out and says he is Adrian Veidt.
Yeah.
Who was Ozymandias.
Puts on the outfit.
Famously the smartest man in the world. Also, an outfit Zack Snyder wouldn't let him wear, the original. He had to be much cooler, so he's wearing the original comic version.
Nice.
So I'm taking it, again, at face value. He says he's Veidt.
At this point, we have no reason not to think that that's what it is. Why complicate it any more than that? Is that how could anyone enjoy the show if you had not read the comics and seen the movie?
I don't.
So
I don't
complicating
know.
it even further for people that haven't seen it, that would be ridiculous.
Yeah.
What did you say happened in the second episode?
Second episode, Sister Night Perlmutter's a coffee cup.
Yes.
And steals his DNA.
Yep.
Yeah.
And goes to Henry Louis Gates and finds out that she is the granddaughter. We meet Joe Keane. Is that where
who we saw?
No, that's not the funeral. That was the 3rd episode.
No, that's the 3rd episode. But there was that painting with the horses.
Martial feats of Comanche horsemanship.
Now he gifted that or whatever. I'm not sure.
Pedia. Let me go back to. There was an article or a letter written to Judd that painting was supposed to be handed down to like the chief of police or whatever his commissioner, whatever he is. That painting symbolizes the duty and the what's needed. So like,
and who wrote the letter?
Whoever was the guy before him.
Okay, well he signed it, AKIA. Like that was the from or yours truly or whatever.
Okay.
AKIA, which is a Klansman I am.
Ooh.
Yeah. So.
Yikes.
Yeah. So it's just more of that in the police force or whatever. But I did see someone say that because they're trying to interpret what this painting's supposed to mean, and it's a bunch of like Native Americans fighting on Comanche on white horses. Some of them, I don't know whether I can barely picture the painting at this point, but they were saying like symbolizing the police hiding behind the whiteness and things. I don't know.
It's interesting because if you go back to that movie clip, the Bass Reeves clip, he's all in black, and the bad guy sheriff is on a white horse and dressed in white.
Oh yeah.
And then we have the painting.
Yeah. Layers, man. Yeah. Layers.
I know that you can tell a lot of this is way more thought out than that, but don't Lindelof me Lindelof.
Well,
don't do where we analyze it like I did at the water cooler watching Lost.
With Ozymandias, he's on the white horse, and the game warden is on the black horse.
Yeah.
Oh.
So it's all about horses.
Yeah.
But there's also all these clones. Who is the game warden? Is this one of those clones? I don't know. I don't.
He's the original Mr. Phillips.
Anyway.
Waiting on Mrs.
Yeah, that is Adrian a prisoner, say, of Dr. Manhattan or someone else, or is he did he kind of self-imposed?
Yeah, did he create?
He killed millions of people.
Yeah,
and he's supposed to be the good guy. He thinks it was worth it. He justifies it, but he might think this was his. penance that he has to go through. But then again, why would he be trying to get?
Just
keep his mind sharp.
I don't know. Eat your cake.
Or slap it out of your head. So tons of Easter eggs. We had many of the scenes transition. The comic famously, the end of one panel on the one page, when you flip the page, would transition. The art would mirror that somehow. So this show does that constantly. You'll see it, a headlight of a car shining, it'll transition to a flashlight from a cop. So it does the scene transitions as close as you could do that to what happened.
A lot of faces going into other faces and the connections between them. So sometimes when I see someone's face go to someone else's and I can't immediately think of a connection, I'm like, I know there's got to be one there. Like, what does this person have to do with this person?
We have the literal Easter eggs making the smiley face out of
that was so great. That was so great. She's even talking about got to separate the color, this from the white and stuff and all this. And I was like, that's the most Easter egginest thing I've ever seen.
Back of a classroom had the anatomy of a squid poster. One of the assassins took the poison pill, the cyanide capsule to avoid.
Even the map in the classroom was not the way our map looks. It was Africa was in the center of the map, probably more realistic to how it actually looks.
And the American flag is different because Vietnam is a state.
Right. Oh yeah,
there's more than 50 states.
Way more stars. Except at the 7th Cavalry place because they don't recognize it. They've got a regular flag or whatever.
And I noticed sometimes they pronounce it Calvary.
That's just because people are stupid.
Okay.
That has bugged me my whole life.
Okay.
And I literally think they just don't correct these actors.
Okay.
They let them say it just because they know in the real world people say that wrong all the time. It's like Calvary is where Jesus was crucified. Right. And cavalry is what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
Dummies.
Riding
Which
horses.
the 7th Cavalry was Custer's group.
Yeah.
And then, you get a text Little Bighorn, so we're dealing with...
Yeah, there was something else, Custer. Oh, it had to do with, I know what. That, at the funeral, they sang that song about his last...
Yeah.
I think it's Gene Autry or whatever, and there's a movie or whatever where they sing at the gravesite, and... It has to do with Custer stuff. So he was doing. It's another thing linking him to the 7th Cavalry.
I can't tell you how much I love stuff like that.
Oh my gosh, it's so good.
Where it means nothing to the overall plot or enjoyment, but just there's a little layer to. If you dig just a tiny bit, there's something new.
Doggy, get along, get along, get along, little doggy, get along, get along, little doggy, get along, get along. Get along, little doggy.
So we had the New Frontiersman and Nova Express newspapers we saw. Classic right-wing and left-wing media outlets from the comic. We had the Black Freighter Inn and Suites, where she stayed, pirate-themed. Robert Redford is the president. We had graffiti, F. Redford and things. So the book ends, Nixon has been president for decades. And it says, maybe the actor will give it a try. And it had the RR. You think Ronald Reagan.
Right.
That was actually Robert Redford.
Yeah.
They conclude their meeting with the Latin phrase, who watches the Watchmen?
Yeah.
That's the police phrase, which, who watches the Watchmen is, it's about who watches the police, who are, who watches the people who are watching us, and then to have the police appropriate that.
Right.
I hope that's, they deal with that, or like that,
I
that's
think
not for you. You're using our
I feel
phrase.
like there's going to be some, it's going to catch up with them.
What else do we have? The second episode, somebody says nothing ever ends, which that's how the comic basically ended, with Ozymandias saying, well, tell me it all came out right in the end, right? And Manhattan says nothing ever ends. So that's sort of his, you don't get a happy ending, Adrian. Screw you.
And when she was, that whole third episode, when I had not read the Peteypedia. I did not know that's who she was. till I was watching, and then I'm like realizing who she is, and she's talking about checking the closet and stuff, and I'm like realizing, you know, she is the comedian's daughter, and I'm just like, oh, this is blowing my mind the whole time. And just, she's telling a joke through the whole episode, and, you know, each of the jokes she's, you know, through the one joke talking about going to, you know, talking to God or whatever, and, you know, talking about
well, it's interesting. They have these booths that broadcast to Mars for Dr. Manhattan to hear, which is essentially, it's Manhattan's a god, and this is your confessional.
Yeah, you can talk to God, get things off your chest. And she's talking to him, telling him this joke, and it just blew my mind, the whole thing. Yeah, I was just so impressed by that whole episode. Sitting in front of the pop art picture, you know, the Warhol picture in her house, with her head right in front of where her head went. She moved around. I was like, oh my god, this is so good. You got that owl in the cage named Who, which is such a comedian thing to do. That's you know, Abbott Costello, and
owl in the cage and a dick in the box.
Yeah, and it's pop art. You know, it's in that pop art form. I was like, gosh, I just feel they are just on all cylinders. Just, I'm so scared for something to go wrong. I'm already scared that it's going to be so big they're going to be like, yep, we're okay, well, it's going to do more seasons, and it'll just go downhill because they've set the bar so high.
Well, that was my problem with Lost, that it just kept throwing new things. It never went back and solved any old things. Right. So we're right now on the heaping new things in a pile, which is great. I'm excited. So let's hope we pay some of those off. Yeah. But she ended her joke with roll on snare drum, curtains, good joke, which is word for word how Rorschach tells the Pagliacci joke in the comic. And she also says something about being a Republic serial villain, which is the famous, I'm not a Republic serial villain, I did it 35 minutes ago. Yeah, the most famous panel in the book.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're getting word for word quotes from the comic, but you don't have to know that.
You got the newsstand guys.
Yeah. But it's just capturing the right feel without being beholden. It's not, you know, it's not slavishly telling the same story.
Yeah, it's not Zack Snydering it, like trying to panel for panel do things, you know, where this is such a higher level.
But there's people who don't like it.
I never felt so seen as when we got a post this week from our silver level page. Yeah, sorry, that's a joke. Justin Lowe, I see you. When you used, I'm a big fan of hyperbole, famously. Well known across the earth. Anyway.
As the most important thing ever.
Yeah. Anyway, when he said, I don't know if I get the quote exactly right. What did he say?
We could.
Yeah.
Pause.
What stays on the.
That's better.
Yeah, okay.
Basically, he said he'd given up on all of humanity. And I was like, wow. He's on the exact same page as me. It's a little late. But because I gave up a long time ago.
Because of the criticism the show is getting.
Yeah.
And if you don't like a show, that's fine. I'm not here to convince you to like a show, although we have a podcast about that. But like, you don't have to like what I like, but dislike it for a good reason. People have bad reasons for disliking stuff.
Right.
So there was an article, it was one of those clickbaity comic websites, and it was like, Watchmen shedding viewers. People aren't happy, or whatever the headline was. They're like, infuriated audience leaves in droves. And it was the first episode had 1.5 million viewers across all the HBO platforms, which is down from Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is the biggest.
Oh, it's not Game of Thrones. Oh my god.
So first episode had 1.5 million. The second episode had 1.3.
Boy.
And his live viewership was 799,000 down to 765,000. So, yeah. People watched the first one. Not everybody came back. I don't know that means we're going away.
That means not everybody knows what Watchmen is.
I think that's the biggest thing that's going to be a problem for this show is that it was made for us,
right?
Not 90% of the population. So,
but the viewership that was better than Succession had in their season finale, which was that same time slot,
right?
But it's about 20% better than Succession's numbers. But there's that lingering thing of, I don't want to watch a show about race and reparations and politics. Mm-hmm. That's fine. If you want escapism, there's a lot of superhero stuff to watch. This is not that. But I don't think it's fair to say, don't be that.
Yeah.
Just don't watch it if you don't want...
Don't watch The Watchmen.
Ooh, who doesn't watch The Watchmen? Angry people on the internet.
Oh, yeah, whatever.
So, there's...
Too much time to the dummies.
But there's also people... like defending the source material and being like, "Oh, Watchmen, you ruined Watchmen with this crap. This isn't what Watchmen is." It's like,
have you read The Watchmen lately?
Yeah, I don't know. They want another adaptation of it, a direct adaptation. I don't know what they want.
Well, they think,
those guys aren't on there.
Yeah,
it's like it's later. It's in the future.
It's not even that though. There's a percentage of people that read that book that think Rorschach is the hero and a great character.
Yeah,
he's a great character, but...
Okay, besides the fact, a lot of these people are on the show. And they're going to be, like, you've already...
they're going to deal with everybody.
You've already got Ozymandias and her, and that, and that,
70-year-old Night Owl's got to
he's coming out of jail. It's like, it's going to happen.
Oh, we have to cast him at some point. We got to figure out who should play him.
I think it should be Robert Redford.
I would love him to be on this thing. But
will he show up at some point?
I doubt it, but I would love
a really grizzly bearded, like the Jeremiah Johnson gif.
He just nods the Dr.
That's all I need. That would be That would be the best. I remember commenting to you guys in our chat that one of my favorite nods was at the end of episode 3 when Petey sleeps with Lori.
Yeah.
And he has a mask on because he knows so much of the history that's the only way that it turns her on, just because her Night Owl had the thing that be costumed up and stuff. I was like, that is the perfect Easter egg. That was so good.
Cliff pointed out that that's another reason people are upset is the stuff with Rorschach.
Mm-hmm.
And making the 7th Cavalry, making those...
he's going to think about it every time he says it now.
Making them white supremacists and saying, Rorschach's not a white supremacist, he's a hero. Well, I wouldn't go so far as hero. So...
Cop carcass on the highway last night. Soon the accumulated black filth will be hosed away, and the streets of Tulsa will turn into extended gutters, overflowing with liberal tears. Soon all the whores and race traitors will shout, "Save us!" and we will whisper, "How?" We are the 7th Cavalry. We are no one. We are everyone. We are invisible. And we will never compromise. Do not stand between us and our mission, or there will be more dead cops. There are so many deserving of retribution, and there is so little time. And that time is near. Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock.
Rorschach is the breakout character of Watchmen.
Yes.
I'll say everyone. He's many people's favorite character.
Me.
He is probably my favorite character. He is fascinating. I
say Herm every day.
That's the truth. I eat beans every day. No. But to me, that's people maybe not getting the character fully.
Right.
Which I hate saying, oh, you don't understand it as deeply as I do. But, these characters are Alan Moore's take on vigilantes and heroes and costumed adventurers, that they're not good people. They're not healthy people. They're not people to be emulated.
They have issues.
Yes. And Rorschach chief among them. And there are flat out obvious places in the texts of, it's Rorschach's journal. We're reading his thoughts.
Right.
And he's being very sexist or racist or homophobic. There's things in the book where he is, he's a white supremacist.
Well, in this show, they're reading word for word out of Rorschach's journal, and I'm like, what don't you get?
And I think some of that probably goes to Zack Snyder leaving all that out of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And because Rorschach is a critique of... They're Charlton characters from the comics. He's the Question.
Right.
The Question was created by Steve Ditko, who is a follower of Ayn Rand, who has this objectivist philosophy, this hard right, very stringent conservatism.
Disney.
Cavalry?
Disney.
Cavalry? Where there's no gray area. There is right and there is wrong. It's reality is objective. And that's the Question. It's that vigilante who, you're either a criminal, you're innocent, or you're guilty. There's no there's no extenuating circumstances. And Zack Snyder is he's publicly talked about, his love for Ayn Rand and following that sort of belief structure. So he's not going to make a movie that criticizes Rorschach. So Rorschach's really cool in the movie.
Yeah.
He's scaling walls and beating people up and taking names and kicking butts and, he's the cool dude. And that's, I think, people's frame of reference.
Yeah, right.
Even if they've read the comic, this movie has superseded them.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Rorschach is cool. It'd be great to kick a door in and not, give no F's and just go about your business. But there's a cost to that. And yeah, that would be the fallout from his journal. Because that. And again, this is one downside to this. I love the ending of the book where Rorschach puts his journal in the mail, mails it to these journalists, and the guy pulls it out of the crank file. And you don't know, is this going to get public? Are all these carefully laid plans going to collapse? And it's nice not knowing. Now we've kind of put in concrete, here's what happened. We've explained what has happened. So again, according to Peteypedia, the New Frontiersman published excerpts from the journal in 1986. It was dismissed as either a hoax or the expression of mental illness, though it remains an object of fascination for anti-government extremists. So they published it, it got out there, and like anything on the internet, there's people who believe it, and there are people who immediately dismissed it, said, whatever. But after Night Owl and Silk Spectre were arrested in 95, it reignited the people's fascination with vigilantes. So the New Frontiersman published the journal in its entirety, became a bestseller, and people studied it, and it put it back into the mindset. So people with an anti-government or anti-authoritarian streak you would go that direction, and you would hear his words, and it would inspire you. And my favorite thing they did in the supplemental material, he's talking about American Hero Story, and he had seen the episodes, and he's kind of warning fellow FBI agents what might happen in the wake of this if it like the book, starts stoking interest in because he's against masks. Right. The FBI does not want these people around anymore, so it's like we got to tamp this down a little bit. So he gives a memo to the FBI. We can expect the sensationalistic hyper-pop narrative that plays recklessly with history, proceeds from an overtly left-wing point of view, and risks alienating the fringe constituencies who regard costumed adventurers with problematic reverence. So they're talking about the HBO show here, which I love the meta narrative of this. Because it's a period piece and fictionalizes real-world events enough to qualify as, quote, alternative history, it's possible contemporary audiences won't see any relevance to current circumstances or even take it seriously. However, given the reverence among certain conservatives for Edward Blake, and given the liberal perspective of the storytelling, we should expect a critical take on the comedian that might irritate and antagonize his fans. So that's basically saying there's a segment of the fan base who view these people as great heroes, and these crazy liberal Hollywood types are going to besmirch them, and there's going to be a backlash. And guess what happened to the HBO show?
Right.
That's exactly what happened.
So many layers.
Yeah. We haven't even talked about Topher. All right. Well, we have now done an hour on Watchmen, or at least the first 3 episodes. So
perfectly done. The clock has just struck.
We're 2 minutes to midnight. Oh, the visual! There's clocks everywhere, gears, and every scene has little just feast for the eyes.
Yeah, it really is dense, and I wish I had more time in the day. I'd like to rewatch everything, again.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll go back and watch a little bit more before the whole thing's over with. Just trying to, when we get a little bit more revealed.
I guess what I kind of regret about us dismissing it before it came out, being like, oh, well, we don't get our hopes up, so, kind of subconsciously. If I had known it was going to be great, I would have reread Watchmen again.
Yeah, I
would have readied myself for it. Now I just feel like it's coming on right, in sweeps. There's all kinds of stuff on. I'm like,
Yeah, I'm not convinced it's the best show ever, but I'm enjoying it more and thinking about it more than basically anything on.
If we were doing a list, we did that list a few years ago of current shows on TV. This would be way up on my list, man. We may have to redo that list one of these days. I would be interested in that.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go ahead and
sign off here.
Yeah.
We hope you like the show, or I hope you have HBO, or this would have been a waste of time.
Right.
Yeah.
So
get HBO.
Hope you're digging the Watchmen like we are. Thanks for listening. My name is Jordan Lowe.
I'm Cliff Barnes.
I'm Seth. Forever.
Ka-Pow, the pop culture podcast, is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Sounds, music, and clips played during the podcast are property of copyright holders. All original content is property of www.udownwithkpp.com.
Come on up, Shay. Please, Shay. Thank you. Oh, hi, Mr. Mr. Noodle, what's going on? Well, Dorothy has a question, Mr. Noodle. Please come down. Oh, good. The rest of Mr. Noodle. Now what's going on? Oh, that's Mr. Noodle's brother, Mr. Noodle. His family. Oh, come on down, Mr. Noodle. Dorothy has a question about family. Boy, they sure are glad to see each other. Mr. Noodles, Dorothy wants to know,
what do you like to do with your family? I think they like to dance.
What kind of dance? Oh, a jello dance.
That's silly.
No?
That looks like a rubber band dance.
Noodles! A noodle dance! A noodle family dance! Let's see it!
The Noodle Brothers can't remember their family dance.
It's the noodle family dance! No?
They're doing different dances.
Uh-oh.
I don't think they can remember.
Elmo hopes they remember it.
You can't remember.
Keep practicing, Mr. Noodles.
Got anything to eat?
There are nuts in the glove. shall I begin?
You think it's cavalry?
That would be the obvious conclusion.
Did he suffer?
Yep. His car's up the road a hair. Tires blown out with the spike strip. Intermuscular hemorrhage, fractured laryngeal skeleton, and ligature marks are all consistent with violent asphyxiation. Both his palms got rope burns. He's got fibers in his fingernails. He was alive the whole time. Until he wasn't.
You was with him last night.
What?
The chief. When I called Jane to notify, she said that they were over at y'all's house for supper.
Yeah.
Was he acting strange?
What do you mean?
You know what strange means. Was he drunk?
No. A couple glasses of wine, maybe.
Was he high?
He might have done some blow.
Sounds like quite a party.
My kids were there.
Your kids?
You shiny. What are you interrogating me now?
Why would I interrogate you?
You're a cold glass.
Then why am I crying under here?